Many thanks once again for joining me on Marketplace today. Moving into the very first story, there's now a new set of rules that will help better regulate lending activities in the country. It follows the coming into force of the amended Borrowers and Lenders Act, as well as the credit disclosure regulations. George Rafi tells us more.
The laws and regulations is part of the Bank of Ghana's move to better or bring about some transparency when it comes to the relationship between the lender and the borrower. The Borrowers and Lenders Act 2017, which according to the Bank of Ghana had been passed by Parliament and assented by the President, gives clear guidelines on how the credit arrangement should be structured when it comes to interest payments, asset that can even be presented as security. The disclosure and product transparency rules is a set of clear rules for credit and product as well as service delivery. For instance, every financial institution, before extending credit, to spell out the rights of the borrower or the interest charges, and the arrangement also must be documented with the borrower having a copy. The lender should also provide the consumer's request a monthly statement capturing the status of the credit, including what is actually supposed to pay when it comes to fees and interest payments and all other charges. The lender shall also provide to the consumer all the details that matters. The new arrangement, for instance, gives a practical example of the cost to the borrower. For instance, if one is taking home or taking about 10,000 Ghana cedis from a bank, the expected interest to be 1,326, meaning that the total cost of that loan would be about 11,326 Ghana cedis, with an interest of about 23%. However, what you actually be taking home is 9,800. The regulations also provide details to deal with complaints. According to the Bank of Ghana, it will not hesitate to sanction and fine any institutions that are not complying with this new set of regulations.
Now, the operations focus and strategy of Barclays Bank Ghana will not be affected despite changes in shareholding structure of its parent company. That's the assurance coming from Barclays Africa after announcing the separation from its UK business. The move is in line with a UK regulatory requirement for Barclays PLC to reduce its holding in its Africa business. Responding to a question posed by Joy Business in an investor call from South Africa, Chief Executive Mario Ramos said the separation would rather help it focus more on the region whilst growing its Ghana business.
It does give us the opportunity to pursue our destiny as a standalone bank. Now, that means looking for opportunities. Those opportunities aren't going to immediately be about us going to look for an acquisition in a new geography, but we have huge opportunities in our current geographies. And we are going to, we are completely focused on making sure that in the countries that we are in, we are going to continue to grow and to make the necessary investments for growth. And so the questions were asked by the gentleman in Ghana. I think Ghana is one of those places where we have already, been growing our business very significantly, and we see further opportunities for growth. We've got further opportunities for growth in Kenya. We see opportunities for growth in Botswana, and so it's in our current portfolio, we see great opportunities for continued growth and being masters of our own destiny.
Moving on, Finance House NDK says it has reached an agreement with government over payment of judgment debt running into millions of Ghana cedis. And Accra High Court last year granted requests of Finance House to freeze critical accounts of government, that is Consolidated Fund and Treasury single accounts. It follows the previous administration's failure to repay loans due to NDK after a rural electrification project. Oku Nikoijani is Chief Executive Officer of NDK Financial Services.
Court has given an instruction for a certain amount to be paid. Well, I don't need to mention it here, by 28th of this month, and by 28th of this month we should also go back to court with a settlement, and already we are talking about settlement. It's looking very positive. They are the only ones who know the reason why they have prolonged this. matter beyond reasonable time, because we began the case long ago in 2009. We had judgment in 2013. The final judgment was delivered by the Supreme Court on the 28th of November 2014. Interest continues to run on compound basis to date.
What about the Garnishi? Is it still in place?
The Garnishi is still in place, and it's expected that when eventually we finally agree on settlements, which has to be announced to the Supreme Court on the 28th of February, we would have taken that into consideration.
Still staying within the financial sector, and finance house AFB says it is venturing into mobile money business to offer soft loans to consumers. Managing Director Arnold Parker disclosed this when the company took its turn at the Facts Behind the Figures series at the Ghana Stock Exchange in Accra. George Riafe has been speaking to the MD of AFB.
Received the central bank approval, and we are currently awaiting the SEC approval. There are a couple of requirements we are supposed to meet. And
after next two stories,
then the takeover will be complete.
One would say that all other things being equal, what's the proposed time that you're hoping that this measure or marriage will be completed?
Well, that will be in the hands of the SEC, so we wouldn't want to preempt the time that it will take them to actually finish the process.
But you have a clear timetable for this, therefore, what period are you hoping, not the exact date?
Well, let's see. I mean, perhaps it could be in a matter of weeks.
One would say that, what does this actually mean for the whole business in terms of this acquisition in Ghana here going forward?
Okay, so just to put it in context, we've been a payroll lender since the business started, and we've been acquired by the largest payroll lender in Africa. So obviously that's what it means. It means that we are going to even become bigger within the industry.
More capital to do other business, venture into other areas, or you still focus on this area that you've been doing quite well over the period?
More capital, more products, will venture into more areas as well.
What areas are we looking at here?
Well, we are looking at mobile money, for instance. So our eyes have been on mobile money for some years now, and that's an area that we are going to use to grow our franchise very well. So we've received the necessary regulatory approvals to also start, a whole new segment of products on the mobile money platforms. So that we feel is also going to take our attention for the rest of the year.
Mobile money, what kind of particular service are you going to provide? Because I thought that the plan now was for the telcos to do this. I don't know whether you're going to partner or it's going to be a different entity on it. So how will this whole way of doing this mobile money be structured with respect to AFB?
Yes, so we are going to be partnering with them. We've actually partnered in many respects. Yes, with all of them.
Let's now get into the energy sector. And former Minister of Power, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, has hinted the previous government has begun work on a new tariff system that will enable industrial power consumers certain reliefs on their electricity bills. According to Dr. Donkor, the new power tariff system proposed by the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, during the maiden State of the Nation address in Parliament is a laudable initiative which, when implemented, will help industrial and commercial users.
Party went into a social contract with the people of Ghana. That social contract is actualized in a manifesto. They said they were going to reduce the energy sector levies. They were going to reduce VAT, import duties, and the rest. The people of Ghana, based on these promises, voted them into power. If the NPP administration thinks their manifesto or these promises were based on an error of judgment, I would be happy if they come out to tell the good people of Ghana, we erred, and therefore let's continue. Fortunately, the Minister of Finance has already stated that he is not going to remove the energy sector levies. They were brought in to fill a hole. If you remove those levies, you have to find the money from elsewhere. Power sector reform program started in 1994. Cabinet approved it in 1995. As part of the reform program, restructuring tariffs is a component of the reform program. Work has already started on that. It is not new. Work has already started on restructuring the tariff. For example, I've always spoken against the norm in Ghana where consumer customers pay less than industrial customers, which is the reverse of the world reality. I've always spoken against that. And arising out of this and other concerns, there is a process ongoing to restructure tariffs.
Meanwhile, the former Minister of Power is advising government to consider listing the Thermal division of the Volta River Authority on the Ghana Stock Exchange rather than the entire company. He said the Thermal division is best positioned to perform when government makes the move.
VRA has subsidiary companies, so nothing stops us from packaging the thermal side as a subsidiary company. In fact, we even had the name Ghana Thermal Limited. The good thing is that the thermal assets are not owned by VRA, they are owned by the government legally. And so it is very easy to split that off, package it into a company, and then you can then list that on the stock exchange. It's Gridco that I have an issue with. You see, Gridco is a natural monopoly sitting in the center of the power system. It is the brain. And therefore, it is not only a commercial entity, but it's also a strategic and security entity. Gridco is profitable. In the last audited accounts available, Gridco made a profit of 44 million cedis. Their 2015 audited accounts is the most sensitive, is the most strategic, and is the most profitable within the state sector, state power sector. And therefore, subjecting it to the rigors of the stock exchange, where the number one consideration is only profit, not national security, not national strategy, I sincerely believe the government will take a second look at that.
But don't you think it will also allow investors and, the public to have an authority sort of on it when they own part of it?
Why must we subject national security, a security asset, to the stock exchange? If we want to go on the stock exchange, I just gave you an example of a division of VRA that can go on the stock exchange. There are other players in the sector. You see, all the others have competition. Gridco is a natural monopoly. Gridco is the brain of the sector. It sits right in the middle. That enables all other players to come into play. And therefore, it is just too strategic to subject it to the profit motive only.
All right, so on this particular development, let's now touch base with my colleague George Wiafe, who is currently positioned at the Ghana Stock Exchange. He will be speaking to the boss of Bears to tell us plans by the stock exchange to welcome these strategic state assets to list on the stock exchange. George, if you can hear me, what has he been telling you?
One of the companies that was listed on this Ghana Stock Exchange, that is AFB, engaged institutional investors basically on their plans going forward, where the AFB boss himself said that they plan to venture into the mobile money business. But before I move to the issue about the listing and the VRA issue and Gridco, quickly let me pick a thought on how one of this company has actually fared on the Ghana Stock Exchange, that is AFB. Mr. Yamoah, you're welcome to Marketplace on Journey Channel on Multi TV and onto our Marketplace program. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Let me first find out from you, what do you make of the performance of AFB on the Ghana Stock Exchange?
It's one of the success stories of alternative market, the Ghana alternative market, called GAX for short. Essentially, this company listed fixed income securities or debt securities in 2015, and subsequently added to these securities that were listed by way of raising new fixed income securities. Essentially, the reason for the additional was to restructure its balance sheet or financial position and to take away some external facilities that were becoming a drain on their bottom line because of exchange losses. That has been done, and hopefully At the end of it, or we've seen the results, the company has turned around significantly. 2016, they reported good results, and it becomes a success story for the exchange to reach out to other companies in that category.
Let's come back to another subject that has become generated a lot of debate, the listing of VRA and Gridco. I knew you had started some works already to encourage these institutions. For the Ghana Stock Exchange, how ready are you for this possible listing of these two institutions?
It's a welcome news. We have been advocating for some of these measures some time back, and it's very glad to hear that this is coming from the highest person of the land, His Excellency the President. Two stories to talk about as far as this is concerned. One is signals from the highest person of the land that the private sector is what must drive the economy. And two, he talked about positioning this as a part of a master plan over the long term, essentially to make them more efficient. Coming to the market means that there will be shareholders who will exert that particular efficiency on you. And if you're doing well, then you must better perform even better than that. And so on that basis, we very much welcome that news. We want to support the various ministers in the relevant sectors of the economy who will be in charge of implementing some of these, that the exchange or the market as a whole is very much available to facilitate that. For me, it's gladdening because, one, it's not only when a company is in distress that it must come to the market. When a company is profitable, it's also an avenue for the company to be on the market for two main reasons. One, you want to improve on efficiency going forward. And two, you want to afford the opportunity to investors, whether you are looking at retail investors, whether you are looking at local institutional investors, including many of the private pension funds or non-resident portfolio investors. If these are available on the market, then particularly for local portfolio investors, including the pension funds, it becomes a great avenue for them to, one, invest in very secure environment and get good returns for pensioners in due course of time. So it's very welcome news for us. And on that basis, I also heard former minister saying
there are concerns about even whether it's a right approach to bring these institutions onto the market.
And that is why I'm saddened by the comment from the former Minister of Power. You see, because one, he made mention of the fact that it's ill-timed, is ill-advised, and that Gridco in particular was profitable. First and foremost, the market is not there for unprofitable companies. So if a company is profitable, then it's even more encouraging to bring such a company to the market for the reasons that I indicated. One, you want our pension companies to invest in the most profitable of entities in this country so that we can guarantee all pensioners good payments on their pensions. Two, you are also empowering the retail investing public to be part of profitable entities in this country. And that way, they get dividends, they get capital appreciations going forward. It's all part of the wealth creation that must be part of this new, new business going forward. And secondly, it talks about the fact that these companies, some of them are the brainy ones as far as the economy is concerned. If you look at the past performances of the economy, the sectorial-wise, you look at cocoa, you look at gold, you look at financial services. These are major contributors to the GDP of this country. And yet, in cocoa, we are privatized. There are many more cocoa buying companies in this country, more than 20. If you look at mining, the biggest mining companies contributing to this economy are privately held. When you come to financial services, banks, 32 and counting, general insurance companies, 26 and counting. And these are all in private hands. So if you say that the biggest contributors to the economy are in private hands, and they are brainy, then why not the power sectors?
Yeah, there are concerns also about the fact that these are strategic assets, and therefore you should be careful in opening them up into the public because of the transparency and the other requirements of listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange. What do you also say about this?
You see, listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange brings you two clear advantages. One is that you must be more efficient than before. Two is that we must be more transparent than before, because the discipline of the market requires you to report regularly. A government official cannot sit somewhere and dispose of a CEO or chairman of a public listed company. It's part of the transparency that we all should benefit from when companies of the nature of VRA and Gridco are on this market. Two is the fact that if you say that these companies must come to this market, then we are looking at returns. Returns for not only the retail investor, but also for portfolio investors, pension funds, who will be investing in these companies. And so for me, if you talk about these companies being strategic, what is more strategic about Ghana than cocoa, than gold, than financial services? And if these companies are in private hands or private entities are operating in these sectors, then I don't see any strategic nature about power generation. After all, we have many private power generations in this economy. So what is peculiar about strategic nature of power generation when there are others who are already private sector entities and are in this space?
Help me with the requirements. Some have said that Gridco, they have solid books and they can even come on tomorrow. We know VRA is going through some problems. What are the requirements that they need to have to aid their listing? Because some also said that even happening within the next 3 years or 4 years might not be possible. Tell me, what do you need to meet to ensure that, do these companies have those requirements to come onto the market within the next 2 years or even, let's say, 1 year?
Let me go on the lighter side first. VRA precedes the Ghana Stock Exchange. VRA has been well run by Ghanaians for a long time, even before the exchange was born. And so if you say VRA, a company of the stature of VRA cannot list on this market, then I don't see any other company that can qualify to list on this market. Two, if you have companies of this stature...
So, Mr. Yamo, sorry, we just have to hold it brief here. All too soon we have to bring our interview with Mr. Yamo to an end. Time is not our best time right now, and we've been coming to you live from the Ghana Stock Exchange, absolutely the office of the Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Mr. Kofi Yamo. This is George Wiafe. Over to you, Mr. Wiafe.
All right, thank you very much, George Wiafe, for that insightful interview. We'll certainly bring you some more of that interview in our subsequent bulletins. George Wiafe speaking with the boss of the Ghana Stock Exchange on his comments of the intention by government to list some of these state assets. And that wraps up the program for this afternoon. The Marketplace has been the program. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Wiafe. Let's meet again, same time tomorrow for another edition. Good afternoon.